Hello, and welcome to our Aging Life Care Moment with Rona Bartelstone. I'm so excited to be here with Rona today and have her share with us about the history of ALCA. She's one of our founding members, as well as a past president from 1988 to 1992. Welcome, Rona, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Deborah. It's great to be with you, and I'm delighted that ALCA is looking at its past, and hopefully this can help to inform the future. So let me just start. I had my own practice. I started my own practice in 1981 here in South Florida, in Miami, actually. And I didn't know that anybody else was doing care management, particularly for the older population in the country. And after a while, I got a call out of the blue from a journalist from the New York Times by the name of Glenn Collins. And he told me that he had heard about me from a group in New York who were also, several individuals who were also practicing geriatric care management. And he asked if he could talk to me about my practice, and I said, absolutely, but you have to promise that you'll introduce me to the folks in New York, because I really didn't know that they existed. So we had a great conversation. We had a wonderful article on the front page of the New York Times. And I then started calling the folks in New York that he had identified and asking if I could come and talk to them. So I traveled up to New York. I met with several of the individuals. I met with them individually together. And we kind of together said, well, if we're doing this, there must be other people around the country who are also doing this. And we decided to see if there was interest in perhaps getting together. So we put out a news flash in a lot of different professional organizations and magazines and things like that. And lo and behold, over 70 people expressed an interest in getting together. So that group convened in New York. And it was the consensus of that group that we should really try to start an association. So the next year we met again, and we put together what was a steering committee. It was not yet a board of directors, but it was a steering committee to look at what would we have to do, what did we need in order to form an association. The third year, we did form an association, and the steering committee ended up being the first board of directors. And Sarah Cohen, who was a New York City care manager, became the first president. Sarah subsequently moved to Arizona and did continue to practice for a while from Arizona. At any rate, I became the second president. I had two-year terms, which I know doesn't happen much anymore, or at all anymore, I guess.
Hi.
And actually, it was an amazing time because, I don't remember exactly how many people were on the board, but it was a very large board. And we did that because we had no staff, and we felt that we needed volunteers who would take up the mantle of developing different aspects of an association. And it was during that time that we began to do membership recruitment. We started to write articles, but we also started doing the internal work about governance, and also about standards of practice and codes of ethics. And actually, in the beginning, it was called the Pledge of Ethics, because we felt that we needed to pledge to the families who were hiring us our professionalism, our objectivity, and our fealty to them, not to anything else. And since this was so new, we really felt strongly that we had to find ways to engender the trust that was necessary to be a care manager. From the code of ethics, the standards of practice began to develop, and we were moving ahead. And for years, we had no staff, and we would have conference calls. We'd have these marathon conference calls where different committees, different groups reported on what they were doing. We talked about practices and what were some of the challenges, so that we could also start to think about the kinds of education and support that we needed. Because when you're, as you know, as a small entrepreneurial business, if you don't have advisors for all of the unexpected things that come up, then you really don't have a way of professionally working through what some of the issues are, whether they're clinical, legal, financial, or simply business developmental issues. So there was sharing of information, but also a lot of caution about antitrust and things like that. So it was a very dynamic time, and it was a very exciting time.
It sounds like it was. What an amazing thought process, and just amazing vision that you all had to put ALCA together and
Thank you.
develop
Thank
the
you.
whole association. And not only did you help ALCA get started, you also were instrumental in starting NACCM. Will you share a few words about that as well?
Sure. Before I do, I want to say one more thing, because I think this is so critically important. The folks who were involved, the men and the women who were involved in starting ALCA, ALCA, were the most incredibly wonderful, smart, dedicated people I have ever had the great joy to work with. And I think that's one of the things that continues and that is so invaluable and so precious about our professional association. It continues to be so dynamic, and the people involved continue to be so smart and dedicated and truly, truly advanced professionals. And we have really made a change in the way healthcare is delivered. So I'm very proud of that, and you all should be too.
Thank you.
As part of that, yeah, thank you. As part of that practice, and that part of that evolution, we also recognize that most professions are either certified or licensed. And we knew that licensure required many things that didn't exist at that time. For example, a unified curriculum at the higher levels of education in colleges and advanced degrees. We didn't have a unified body of knowledge in the form of peer-reviewed journals and books and other kinds of literature or research. And there wasn't a body that was appointed to kind of set the standards for all of that. So as NACCM, as GCM, then ALCA was looking toward certification, we thought it might create a stronger bond if we actually partnered with Connecticut Community Care. Connecticut Community Care is a care management, a geriatric care management organization that at one time served the entire state of Connecticut. And they were also looking at some of the same issues we were as a not-for-profit service provider. And so we thought we would have greater expanse and greater resources if we joined with them. And in fact, they helped to fund, Connecticut Community Care helped to fund the start of NACCM. So we put together yet another board. We included practicing care managers, but we also included informants from academia, from practitioners, from people who are working with different populations, because many of us also worked with disabled individuals. And we also raised money to hire a testing company, because we didn't think that it was sufficient just to say, well, I've done this for so many years, therefore I should be able to be certified to do this. You have to be able to kind of demonstrate your skills in some way, and a test is the best way to do that. So we joined with a testing company. We held meetings around the country to identify the domains of practice, the skill sets, the knowledge, information, and the abilities that would go into making a truly professional care manager. And then following up on that, once we had kind of the domains and the areas of expertise that people needed, then around the country we held, under the guidance of the testing company, we held item writing seminars where we actually got together, taught professionals how to write questions for a testing process. And then we wrote questions, we tested the questions, and we put together an exam that we could demonstrate to accurately reflect the work that goes on in a care management practice. It was a very laborious, labor-intensive, stimulating, exciting process. And we had so many people involved, and that was the start of the certification process. And NACCM ran, the National Academy of Certified Care Managers, ran the testing process until just a few years ago when we turned it back over to the association.
Thank you, Rona. Thank you so much for all of the history that you shared with us today, and for the vision that you helped to get ALCA started and moving forwards. And we hope to be able to continue the hard work that you started.
Thank you so much, Deborah.